Hello, welcome to the Sabby and Jaybe show. My name is James Fauntleroy. I am one of your hosts. Good to see you. What's up, Sabs?
What's going on, Jaybe?
All right, just to let you guys know, the Sabby and Jaybe show is every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good to see all of you here in the chat as well. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like and share the video. This pushes us out into the algorithm so we can reach more people in order to educate and inform. So thank you so very much. If you will also like to, you can join our mailing list to get notifications from us at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. So there you have it right there. And if you have any questions or want to submit any stories that you think may be interesting, you can email us at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. So thank you so very much for that. Just by the way, just to let you guys know, I think there may have been a time confusion with our guest. So our guest will not be able to be here this evening. But we do still want to talk about what's going on in Africa. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that and what's going on. So we hope everything is fine with him. But yeah, so Sabs, good to see you. That workout kicked my ass.
I feel you. I feel you very much. So
the exercise bike, he my quads and my hamstrings.
I feel you, man.
It ain't right, Sabs. It ain't right.
It's not. I told you I went to the gym twice on Monday morning and Monday evening. And the next day, like Tuesday and Wednesday, I was really like, ouch.
How did you do that?
I did upper body in the morning and lower body in the evening. But yeah.
Sabby, I would not want to get into a fight with you.
Hey.
Slabby coming over there and laying the smackdown on people. My goodness. Oh man, she's like, I challenge you to a duel. Darkness, evil, magic. Sorry. I'm going to remember we were talking about Rick James. So.
Oh yeah, Jaybe and I were talking about. I don't know if you guys remember Chappelle Show, the Rick James skits. We were talking about that the other day, where Dave Chappelle was dressed up as Rick James, and he said, "Charlie Murphy,
Charlie Murphy, darkness, everyone, darkness, darkness is spreading."
He said, "Fuck your couch." Give it to me, girl. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, guys.
I was listening to that while I was working out too. Man, I was on the elliptical. That song came on. Man, you can go to that song. I'm telling you.
Give it to me, girl.
I came home last night.
Do.
To me. You were fast asleep. You wouldn't even talk to me. Say, I'm so crazy.
He really was, though. He really was kind of crazy.
Let's say what's up to some of the people in the chat. Let's get it on here. We have GP coming in saying, here for the real deal. Good to see you in here, GP. Wavy Particle says, hello to all. Good to see you, Wavy Particle. Are those light waves or sound waves?
Or hair waves?
Yeah, got to get them waves on. Charlie, Mac, all dressed in black. Sorry. That's what it makes me think of. Anyway, we have Jason. Woohoo! Time for a banger while I do the dishes. Nice. What type of soap do you use? I use Dawn. I love Dawn. I love the smell.
I use Dawn too.
Really? Yep. The blue?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Either Dawn or the green Palmolive. Those smells. Oh my gosh.
And they also help with oil too, because like I said, if you have like greasy like pants and stuff, like they actually do help.
Yeah. With ducks too.
Housekeeping tips from Sabby and Jaybe.
Yeah. Ellen says, hi, everybody. Hello. Good to see you. Jacqueline. Good to see you. It says, hey, everybody. All right. Who else do we have here? We have Max coming in. Seeking justice to punish the evil will always be a never-ending challenge. Yes. Challenge accepted. All right. We have Atrays says, what up? What up, Atrays? All right. We already have a super chat coming in from IHQ Princess Sajahu. Says, happy Indigenous America's Colonial Occupation and Genocide Day. That's a mouthful. Wait, that's right. It is July 4th. Oh my gosh. I forgot.
I think it's about to rain here. So, I mean, it seems like it's going to rain. But yeah.
Now.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are probably going to barbecues today and going to see fireworks. It's not fun trying to see the fireworks in the rain.
No. Tell me, baby, can you stand the rain?
No.
We have Honda coming in from the Rumble side. Good say hi, Sabby and Jaybe. All right. Ellen coming in saying hi, everyone on the Rumble side. Net Rando saying cheers from Canada. Hello from Canada. All right. Oh, yeah. What's ever at the dollar store? Yeah, I feel you there. I feel you. We have Richard coming in saying, go, Sabby, get busy. Go, JB, get busy.
All right, Richard.
Get busy. Tuna fish and grits gravy. Tuna fish and grits gravy. Tuna fish and grits. Tuna fish. Remember how we made a variation of Too Legit to Quit?
I do remember. We're bringing back the 90s, guys.
Man, I'm showing my age. I just turned 40. I ain't scared of y'all. Curse Kane says, hey, from England. We have Rome in the chat saying, hey, y'all, good to see you, Rome. It's always good to have Rome in the house.
I said Jerome's in the house. Watch him out.
All right. So, ready to get into some stuff about Africa?
Let's do it.
All right. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk to people about, and I had a few questions regarding to Kay Dalio, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was why were the mass protests in Kenya happening? You actually sent me this video of what's going on. Actually, I want to talk about the protests in Kenya first, really quick. Hang on. Wait, what's this? Oh, okay. So this is out of the Financial Times that I wanted to talk about. Hang on. You see. Okay. So let's talk about Africa and the IMF. So if anybody knows, the International Monetary Fund, along with the World Bank, is a bank that's started by nation states. And right now, there's some problems with the IMF. And this is out of the Financial Times. It says Kenya's mass protests expose African fury with IMF. The blurb says William Ruto is the latest president of developing country caught between multilateral lenders and angry population. So if we go here, it says as Kenya reels from the deadly anti-tax riots that have rocked East Africa's most advanced economy, the target of protesters' angers remains starkly clear in murals of the walls of central Nairobi, and it's not just the government. Quote, IMF, keep your hands off Kenya, end quote, said one painted slogan. As live rounds crackled and police deployed tear gas in Nairobi streets, 25-year-old protester Joe Muremi said the IMF is involved in bringing us chaos upon Kenya. For many Kenyans, the unrest that forced President William Ruto last month to withdraw a finance bill aimed at raising more than $2 billion in taxes has laid bare the role of Washington-based multilateral leaders in their country's policy making. So, Sabs, I want to stop here for a second. Is there really, truly any surprise that Kenya is being manipulated by the West, especially people like William Ruto? And we're going to be getting into what he's doing in a country in the Western Hemisphere as well, his role there. But is there any surprise as to William Ruto's role? And what would you say his role more specifically is in your view?
He's just another Western puppet. I mean, a lot of this revolves around money, right? So people wondering like why, why would Kenya choose to side with the US and invade Haiti? Because that's what they're paid to do. There's a lot of money involved here. And so this is what the United States government has been doing for quite some while. They will be able to get people from other countries to go help them, invade and intervene in other countries simply by money. And I'm not sure how much of a debt that because I'm thinking about this and I'm not sure if Kenya has a large debt with the United States, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. But
let me ask you this, though. Do you think that it's possible that former President Obama was instrumental in getting Kenya to be more of a vassal state for the United States?
I could see that happening.
Because he's half Kenyan, and his father. I wouldn't be surprised if his father was instrumental in getting that kind of that closeness, that geopolitical closeness between the United States and Kenya.
But does his father?
Sorry, go ahead.
Does Obama's father still talk to him though? I didn't think they were on speaking terms.
I thought he was dead. Right.
But even back then, I don't think they were on, from what I understood, I didn't think they were on speaking terms. But I see what you mean. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of money involved. Like when I talked to journalist Abayami, he is a contributor at the Black Agenda Report. He was explaining to me that this has been in the stages for quite some time. And he said the only reason why Kenyan soldiers are choosing to go along with this is because money. Mm-hmm. And I know you probably think to yourself, like, why would they want to go along with invading another Black country? Basically, money.
Yeah. Let's continue in this. Actually, you know what? Let me share this video, because there was a video that I saw that really is explaining the role of the IMF in Kenyan politics, and I think that's also really important because to get what the IMF does, to get that that perspective as to why the IMF, in my view, is actually just a front for worldwide control, especially of the global South. So this is going to be a short video, but let's go.
The International Monetary Fund, an institution that promotes global economic stability and perhaps a lender of last resort, or as some say, an outdated organization whose policies damage the social and cultural fabric of a country. Let's take a closer look. The IMF was founded in 1944 at Bretton Woods in the United States. Since then, its membership has grown from 44 countries to 190. The IMF says it monitors the economic health of member countries and provides loans for governments in economic distress. 2 years ago, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, more than 100 nations requested bailouts from the IMF. Here's our correspondent, Alan Fisher, reporting on those loans.
From its headquarters here in Washington, the International Monetary Fund has put together a $9 trillion pot to help countries deal with the COVID crisis. Most of that money has come from the G20, the world's richest nations, and more than 100 countries have asked for help.
Now, this is the IMF map of where money was distributed. Among those helped, $2.7 billion to Egypt, $411 million to Ethiopia, $361 million to Bosnia-Herzegovina. More recently, Sri Lanka received $2.9 billion after its economy faced collapse. It ran out of money for food, medicine, cooking gas, and fuel. But critics of the IMF say it is outdated and ineffective. Of the 89 developing countries that received IMF loans between 1965 and 1995, more than half were no better off afterwards. In fact,
now, is that any surprise? That if they're getting a loan, right, they should now be better off than what they were before. But he said between 1965 and 1995, that's 30 years. And in 30 years, they haven't improved these countries?
But my question is, JB, are they still owed? Like, do they have to pay that money back? Like, that's the thing. Like, these are just loans. So it's almost like those countries then become a slave of the United States.
Bingo.
Because it's not a grant. It's not a gift. It's a loan.
No, it's a loan, and that's one of the things I think is this is what neocolonialism is basically a part of neocolonialism is pretty much keeping the people, the nation states under the boot, even though it's not necessarily a military boot, it's a financial one. It's keeping them under that boot so that they can still remain, in subservience to the West. And this is another piece, because everybody goes, man, why are Africans always so poor? Remember growing up, especially those of us in the Black community, we were always told, oh my God, Africans are so poor, and be grateful you live here in the United States, because if not, you will be in Africa. And it's like, wait a minute, but with all the resources Africa has, why is it still poor? And why do they need loans from the IMF and the World Bank? Why is that necessary in the first place?
Because we took their resources from their country. And, I was thinking about this a couple of days ago, because we've spoken to a couple of people that are from different countries in Africa. Yeah. And every single one of them can tell you about all the natural resources that their countries have and the countries that have stolen those resources. So we talked about Niger a lot last year. Yeah. Remember, we were talking about how France says they were taking like their uranium. And so that's why a lot of the people in Niger are poor, because France is stealing so much of those resources, and there are troops there in Niger as well. You could say the same for Ethiopia. Ethiopia is also rich in a lot of different just natural resources that have been stolen from the country. And this happens all over the world, but it's very clear that the US in particular and other Western countries, they do tend to target those African countries. And it's very apparent. I mean, look at how the US government destroyed Haiti, the US government and France. Look at how they destroyed Haiti.
Mm-hmm. In fact, and that was a bit of a Freudian slip that you had, Sabs, but it was absolutely correct. You said companies. Oh. Yep. I was like, no, you're right. You were right the first time. But when it comes to, like, for instance, I think it's 70% of France's electric power comes from nuclear power plants. But France does not have uranium deposits. But Niger does.
That's right.
And so if Niger is supplying energy, all this energy to France, but yet most of Nigerians do not have electricity. I think it's like 90% of them don't have electricity. Why is it that they are supplying all the uranium, but they don't have any electricity?
Right. Because France steals most of it. Isn't that insane when you think about it?
And this is my argument against these social democratic states, because social democracies, and let me tell you right now, a lot of people will go, well, we just want a thriving social democracy. This is what a lot of the squad, they'll say, well, we need a thriving social democracy. A thriving social democracy also uses capitalism to exploit the people in the global south. This is why capitalism does not work, even if you put bridles on it to control it. Because once you put bridles on it, you're still exploiting. This is why you have to walk away from capitalism completely. Because even in those thriving social democracies, how did they get to where they're at right now? In order to give their citizens all these benefits, somebody has to get shafted. You just don't see who gets shafted, though. That's the problem. Go ahead.
A lot of times that exploitation comes from countries in the global south. That's where it comes from a lot of times. So, and I was telling people about this before too, a lot of the retail stores, and I don't, it's almost impossible to find any retail store that has ethical practices at this point. But there are a number of clothing stores that do just that, like H&M, like the Gap, like Old Navy, like a lot of these stores where the clothing is cheaper. It's lower cost clothing. And so a lot of people do shop there because you can go to like H&M and you can get like a dress or something for like $11, depending on what you find. But a lot of those clothing stores, I saw an entire documentary about this, how they exploit people in the global south. That's how they're able to, set such a low price for the clothing items, because they basically have people in the global south in these warehouses, barely paying them anything. Some of them are children making all of these clothes, and then they sell them. H&M and all these other stores will sell them in their stores for pretty cheap prices.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find something that is ethical when it comes to the clothing, the retail business, the retail industries. It's very hard to find something that is 100% ethical. Same thing with the beauty industry as well. I mean, we talked about what happened with Rihanna, with her brand, with Fenty, about there was exploitation, there was child labor, that was involved in making Fenty products. So we just don't see it because oftentimes it's not happening in the United States. It's happening in those other countries.
Yeah. And to add to your point, if they do it to clothes, imagine what they do to electronics.
Right.
Let's continue in this video because I want to get back to this because she continues on. Let me go back just a few seconds and then continue.
More than half were no better off afterwards. In fact, 32 were poorer. Other critics question whether many nations which borrow money from the IMF have the ability to repay it.
Now you're saddled with additional debt from the IMF, then some sort of longer term plan and program is likely going to have to step in to help countries through that.
Now, the IMF is downgrading its forecast of 2.9% global growth in 2023. It says that's because of the increasing risk of recession and financial instability.
Far from being transitory, as we thought, inflation is much more persistent. High energy and food prices, tighter financial conditions, lingering supply disruptions decelerate growth. All of the world's largest economies are now slowing down.
For better or
Is it didn't wonder as to why people are so poor in the countries? Like, come on, ma'am. It's because of the system that is in place. It's because of what your organization, the IMF, has done in order to keep. Look, do not let people like that make me want to cuss them out. I want to cuss that lady out. Anyway, let me continue before I get myself in trouble. This is a family show.
or for worse, many more governments may need to turn to the IMF in the coming months and years.
So one of the things I wanted to bring out is because I asked this question: why would a country like Kenya necessarily need, a loan from the IMF? Now, let's continue this article just a little bit. It says what the IMF as driving Ruto's fiscal and austerity policies, thousands of young, often jobless protesters poured into the streets with placards such as "We ain't IMF," snitches with a B, and "Kenya is not IMF's lab rat." Nationwide protests raged even after the bill's withdrawal, as demonstrators demanded Ruto quit and labeled him a puppet of the fund. When you say IMF, I say United States. IMF, United States. IMF, United States, because that's honestly how it reads to me. IMF is really just a front for the West, telling these countries in the global South what to do with their own resources, and that is it's maybe I'm being maybe it's an understatement, but to me that's very paternalistic of the IMF to tell these countries what to do with their resources in order to say, well, if you guys actually want this money, and if you guys want to pay, if you guys want this money, you guys got to do what we say, and you guys have to, it's like, I don't know.
It's not given. It's not given to them, or excuse me, loaned to them without strings attached. So yeah, they'll loan them the money to help them in the time being. But as she said in that video by Al Jazeera, what did she tell you? That oftentimes those countries are still kind of worse off after the fact, right? So it's not a permanent fix. It's just putting a Band-Aid on the wound. It's not actually healing the wound. Yeah. So they're not going to loan millions and billions of dollars to these countries without some type of strings that are attached. So it was a mistake for those countries to get themselves involved with this with the West. That was a mistake.
Yeah, big mistake. Because look at this. This is out of Britannica. Resources from it says this is the resources out of Kenya. It says resources and powers, soda ash used in glassmaking is Kenya's most valuable mineral export and is quarried at Lake Magadi in the Rift Valley. Limestone deposits at the coast and in the interior are exploited for cement manufacture and agriculture. Hang on, I just want to say this one thing. Cement is used everywhere. So if cement is used everywhere, that means that a lot of people, a lot of countries need that cement in order to build building infrastructure, for cities and, so many different things. So of course, that's one huge thing that they export. Vermiculite, gold, rubies, topazes, and salt are also important, such as fluorite, also known as fluorspar, and used in metallurgy, which is mined along the Kirio River in the north. It says deposit of titanium and zirconium bearing sands were found in multiple locations northeast of Mombasa and to the south of the city. Exploration for petroleum has so far met with limited success.
Yeah. So this goes back to capitalism, though, JB. This goes to show you about the greed, right? Because this, again, is another way of people trying to get cheap or sometimes free or forced labor to get the resources that they need instead of doing it the right way. I mean, we don't have, when you look at the resources, the natural resources that we have in the United States, and then you look at the resources that are in countries in Africa, you can see the difference. This goes all the way back to the diamond industry too. Remember we talked about this before about, the blood diamonds in Africa. I mean, these countries are rich in resources, but the people there are poor because other countries, particularly those from the West, have stolen their resources to use for their own goods. It's crazy. And there's no accountability on the West for this. But it's tricky too, because those countries are still relying on the West because they're relying on that support from the IMF if needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at some of the public debt of African countries, some of the public debt that has been incurred because of the IMF, really, it just makes it, it makes it tough on the people because no matter what you do, I mean, the politicians, they're going to be fine. It's the working people that are going to suffer ultimately. And so this is why I think in a more egalitarian system, you would leave that country alone, or if you're not going to leave them alone, you write them a check and then you send it to them and just leave them alone. Because ultimately, who put Kenya in this position in the first place? I will argue that England did, because England was the one who had colonized Kenya. And so, as a person who supports reparations, I think Kenyans need to demand reparations from England.
Absolutely. And also I think that I think none of these countries should take any money from the West.
No.
Because it leads you into a pile of debt that they are going to look back. And then the US government knows that those countries can't pay back millions of dollars, right? So then it's like, well, we gave you this money or loaned you this money, so now we need you to do something for us. We need Kenyan soldiers to go into Haiti to help combat the so-called gang violence there. And this is how you basically become a slave to the system.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, that's a great segue into talking about what's going on in Kenya's involvement in Haiti. So let me enlarge this just a little. Put that down there. Let me enlarge this just a little bit so we can see. So it says around 400 Kenyan men have landed in Haiti to begin the UN's intervention, sponsored by the US amid unrest back in Kenya. Despite opposition in Kenya and the withdrawal of major Haitian groups from the Montana Agreement, the troops will be deployed to take control of the capital. So here's a photo here, and then let's get into this as well.
This one
Driving.
This one I do for Hey, yo, mama.
400.
So it's 400 Kenyan troops that are arriving. And my thing is, who does the West think they're fooling? Just because you got a whole bunch of black people coming in to restore order, does that mean that the Haitian people are going to go, oh, they look just like me. They're here to restore order. All right, let's restore order. Let's let them be.
No, because I think honestly, if they would have brought in soldiers that were, European or whatever, obviously the press would have a field day with that one. So you're right. They say, let's use someone who has the same complexion as you against you. And this has been happening for centuries. And I feel really sorry for the Haitian people because they are not wanted in the Dominican Republic, even though they share an island. The DR has we talked about this last year, the DR is starting to basically deport Haitians, even those that were born in the DR, deport them to get them out of the DR. A lot of it is racial. Let's just keep it real.
Yeah.
So it's not like they can go to their neighbor in the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they have nowhere else to turn.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I think, we need to call this out, because William Ruto ain't right for doing this. He basically is the puppet of the United States as we see right now, and sending troops into Haiti to try to restore order. Meanwhile, you have Jimmy Cherizel, who is trying to really liberate much of Haiti right now. And he's being painted as a gang leader when in reality, he's more of a revolutionary. Even Dan Cohen, a journalist, Dan Cohen, even said so much, talking about Jimmy Cherizel. They call him, this nickname is Barbecue. But, a lot of times, like, people were trying to throw this narrative around, this lie around that, he's called barbecue because he's a cannibal. And my thing is, number one, that's false, because they're trying to paint the revolutionary as somebody who's savage, right? And look, of course they're going to paint us as savage, right? But then another thing is, the whole thing about cannibal, that is also steeped in white supremacy and racism. Because what do they do to people who are brown and black? They paint us as savages, and we eat other people. Meanwhile, if you actually research the history here in the United States, who was eating some of us when we were slaves?
Right.
Okay, so my thing is like, that in itself just it just has this big undercurrent of just white supremacy and racism when it comes to Haiti, and Haiti wanting to free themselves. I mean, they have a history of doing it, and the thing is that they don't want to be puppets of the West, but Ariel Henry is a puppet of the West, and they're trying to keep him in that position.
Right. And obviously that hasn't been working out for people in Haiti. I think it's not just what Haiti is experiencing economically. I mean, we have to talk about the fact that cholera returned to Haiti last year because of the lack of, how do you get cholera? There's a lack of clean water, right? Yeah. So a lack of water. You can't wash your hands as much because there's lack of water. Like, so there's disease that has returned. It's just, Haiti would not be in the position that it's in today had the West stayed out of it. Going all the way back to Woodrow Wilson's presidency. A lot of people bring up the Clintons. Let's go back to Woodrow Wilson, where he also sent in the U.S. Marines into Haiti to take over their economic, structure, to take over their banks. So we can't dismiss the West's involvement. When you look at some of these countries that people like to refer to as third world countries, we always have to go back to, how did they become that way?
Mm-hmm.
Why are people struggling there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to let you guys know, in fact, I'm going to share this with you guys really quick, because shout out to Dan Cohen for sharing that, for being a part of this. So this is from Uncaptured News. It says the U.S. government, corporate media, and shady Twitter or X influencers paint Jimmy Barbecue Sherryzell as a cannibal gang leader. In reality, he's seeking peace and development for Haiti and working with a Catholic priest to achieve it. And so it talks about the documentary from Haiti Intervention or Revolution, which I will share the link with you guys for. But here is Barbecue Sherryzell, Jimmy Sherryzell, right here on the left. And that might be I think that's the Catholic priest on the right. So let's go.
What the people really need now is food. Yo besoin manger. Yeah. So we have to get food for them.
I think so. One of the key figures involved in both the Peace Accord and the community projects is Father Tom Hagen of Hands Together, an NGO that builds schools across the country.
My role wasn't that much. It was just kind of like a suggestion, because we've had a couple kind of truce before, and but interesting, not many people have even come to say, hey, this is a good thing. Nothing at all. And I wonder sometimes if it's just have a suspicion that maybe the people want these gangs to be called bad people or bad gangs because they use them for different reasons, political reasons, and whatever else. But I'm willing to stand up and say, hey, there's goodness in it. And I bet my life on this guy. He's a good person. What do people really?
What do you think about that, Sabs?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And I think that, some people have different opinions about barbecue. I interviewed Dan Cohen, and I interviewed another journalist that is an expert on Haiti as well. They seem to have different opinions about barbecue. Okay. I don't think we can say that one is, I don't think we should say that like barbecue is 100% right or 100% wrong. You know, I think there's some middle ground there. But it is very obvious that mainstream media has tried to paint him as this evil, you know, vicious character that's trying to kill all these people in Haiti. And you'll obviously hear a different version of this if you talk to people that are more so independent journalists that have been there on the ground. Dan Cohen was fortunate enough to actually sit down and talk to Barbecue and interview him, which I think is great. And I don't think you'll see mainstream media or want to do that. But there's a reason for that, because as long as they can convince you that he is this vicious character, then that makes more people that watch Western media feel as though, okay, yeah, the U.S. government is right to send those troops into Haiti.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same where, like, for instance, I have no particular love for Vladimir Putin, right? Because Putin is anti-communist, and, you know, Putin does have some ways about him that I definitely disagree with. But I'm also not going to believe what the West says about Putin, because the thing is like, he's doing way better for his people than a Biden or Trump would. So, I mean, that's part of the nuanced conversation that should be had, but it's not, because the West is like, okay, this guy's the bad guy, this guy's the good guy, and there's no in between. And the thing is like, number one, it's like you have no room to say who's bad and who's good, because of look at what you've done, way worse than the other countries. Number two, making it such a simplistic type of generalization on different leaders. You know, yes, they each of them have their flaws. I'm sure, you know, Assad has his flaws. I'm sure Putin has his flaws. I'm sure Xi has his flaws, right? But at the same time, they tend to seem, you know, less imperial. They seem to be much less imperialistic, and, you know, in wanting to exploit people of the global South than, say, the U.S., France, Canada, the UK, you know, Germany, you know, and other Western countries that basically want to take all the resources for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is something else I want to bring up too, because this is, I don't know, what, the fourth or fifth time we've seen this happen with different countries in the past year and a half, maybe, because now the protesters in Kenya, they are calling for the president to step down. I want to share this here for people to see. Protests continue in Kenya as some are now calling for the president to step down. So we've seen this. We saw it with Haiti. I saw it with Sri Lanka. I remember Sri Lanka, actually, they went into the prime minister's house and kicked him out of his own house. That was kicked him out of his own house. But it says here, I want to get into this article. It says protests continued in Kenya's capital and elsewhere Tuesday over a finance bill that would raise the cost of living, even after the president said he would not sign it in the wake of the storming of parliament last week. Police fired tear gas at protesters in Nairobi as many businesses remain closed for a fear of looting. The main highway to Kenya's second largest city, Mombasa, was closed after protesters lit bonfires. In Mombasa, 5 vehicles were burned by protesters outside a hotel whose owner is alleged to have shot at protesters who were looting. While there are concerns that President William Ruto might change his mind and sign the finance bill before next week's deadline, some protesters are also calling on Ruto to resign and accusing him of bad governance. So you see, and it also goes on to say that a lot of these protests are youth-led. So this is something we're seeing across the world. Like, the younger people are not afraid. Like, the younger people are like, nope, enough is enough. We're not gonna repeat, you know, the behavior of previous generations. And it goes on to say here that the Interior Minister, Kathari, on Tuesday said criminals were taking advantage of planned protests to commit arson and terrorize Kenyans. He warned that they were planning more violence on Thursday and Sunday and said that the government was determined to stop them at whatever cost. But the thing is here again, protests continue in Kenya as some are now calling for the president to step down. Like we saw this with Ari Henry. Just in multiple countries, this is happening over and over where the people rose up and they said, no, you have to go. We're not going to put up with this anymore. And I would say it's not just, again, about the finance bill. It's also about the fact that they just went into Kenya and sent over like 400 troops, to basically go bully Haiti. I mean, this is insane.
Yeah, it's like okay. You remember X-Men: The Last Stand?
I haven't seen that one, JB.
I don't want that again.
I'm behind.
I don't want to ruin anything for you, but there's a part in the movie. I don't know if I should say this part.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. There's a part where Magneto stops Juggernaut and says, "And chess, the pawns go first." This is what the United States is doing to Haiti because they don't want to spill their own blood. Just like think about what they're doing with Ukrainians, right? They want to spill Ukrainians' blood for the means of getting to Russia. Well, of course, the United States also wants to send Kenyans to spill their blood in Haiti instead of the United States actually sending its own troops. And it's like a twofold purpose. It's like, well, we're not, you're not wasting the lives of our own troops, but also their troops are all black. So therefore they're it's basically a black face to, take over the country. And so their Kenyan troops are literally being used as pawns for Western dominance in Haiti, which is also very rich in resources. And Haiti is a beautiful country. I don't know if you ever seen like pictures of like the countryside, and it's like Hawaii. It's gorgeous. And of course they're gonna want that real estate on top of the resources too.
Exactly. And it's just, we're talking about, again, what they call it, oceanfront property. Like this is happening all over the world.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's these protests, a lot of them are led by younger people. I think it really does send a sign of hope for the future.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. Let me share this as well. Because while we're talking about Africa, I would love to talk about Niger. We were touching on Niger a little bit. But this actually, and I ain't going to lie, look, I am not a fan of coups. I will reflect what friend to the channel, Margaret Kimberly, says. She is not a fan of coups. I am not a fan of coups either. I'd rather it be through, civilian means to take over a government. However, what Ibrahim Traore has done in I'm talking about Burkina Faso. But what has happened in Niger is nothing short of almost Ibrahim Traore. I'm sorry. I don't know why I got his name confused with Burkina Faso. I'm sorry, Burkina Faso, and I'm sorry, that's what I wanted to talk about, not Niger. But it says Ibrahim Traore, don't trust the Western media. So this is from Africa Stream. It says Burkina Faso, like its neighbors Mali and Niger, had pretty bad reputation, according to most mainstream media outlets. Yet mobilizations and rallies raged in support of Burkina Faso's government and the Alliance of the Sahel States, the AES. So, of course, if anybody remembers, the Alliance of the Sahel States is actually a new alliance. They basically withdrew from ECOWAS. And now they are part of the AES. So it says, so what accounts for this significant difference in perception? The clip shows Burkinabe President Ibrahim Traore speaking on the 20th of June to local journalists working in radio diffusion television du Burkina which is RTB, about the need to be aware of these imperialist media outlets. As he pointed out, inaccurate news stories could have dire consequences for the country's internal politics. Now, just stopping right there for a second, I would like to reflect on this is why China has such a, what's the best word I can use? Such a stronghold, or such a vigilant hold on Western media getting into and filtering into their country, because a lot of times where you may have State Department puppet front organizations lying about the country, and then next thing you know, it'll get Chinese people going, well, or is our government really doing this, when in reality they're just doing it by nefarious means. It's the same thing in places like Burkina Faso, where Western media will creep in and they will try to lie about what's going on in their country. Or it's just like with the DPRK, how they have to be very vigilant when it comes to the types of media that gets in and tries to sow division in their country in order to take it over. And so it just reminds me of that as well. It continues, it says, Traoré referenced media coverage of the former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo, sorry, I'm bad at these African names, Gbagbo, who served from 2000 to 2011, was acquitted of 2019 of alleged crimes against humanity in the International Criminal Court. The case has shifted the political tide in the Ivory Coast by securing the rule of Gbagbo's rival, the ardent French ally and current president, Alassane Ouattara. He also referenced the assassination of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, whose Western media outlets have depicted as a dictator before being killed following the 2011 NATO invasion. The North African state collapsed amidst the ensuing civil war that has torn the country into three parts. Plus, slave markets were established as a result of the chaos. We got to remember that this is what Obama and Hillary Clinton did. They basically turned Libya into a slave state.
Yep.
Says the upheaval in Libya also destroyed thousands of lives in the Sahel because paramilitaries funneled weapons seized from the fallen Libyan state into Sahel. Traoré pointed to French-owned media such as Radio France International, France 24, and Le Monde. He also called out Jeune Afrique, a news site and magazine founded owned by French Ivorian businessmen and close friends to Ouattara. This begs the question, what media sources do you trust? So let's go ahead and take a look at this video really quick and see what she says. It's kind of hard to see a little bit, but if you need me to, I can also read it as well.
Monsieur le Président, quelle est l'appréciation que vous faites du traitement de cet incident par les médias, notamment les médias occidentaux?
Et ça tombe bien, vous êtes des journalistes, vous travaillez dans l'information. Vous voyez ce qu'on appelle le média mensonge? Je pense que beaucoup ont compris maintenant. La plupart sont des médias menteurs. Ils ont passé le temps à mentir, à manipuler. Et aujourd'hui, quand je les regarde dans leurs reportages et tout ce qu'ils racontent, c'est honteux. Et c'est très bien. Ils sont arrivés même à prouver à toute l'Afrique, à tout le monde entier, qu'ils sont des menteurs. Et c'est bien. Je pense que la jeunesse africaine doit avoir compris, la jeunesse burkinabé doit avoir compris. Se désabonner de ces gens-là, ne plus les écouter parce qu'ils nous ont manipulés pendant longtemps. Voilà, vous avez plusieurs exemples chez vous. Hein. On prend la Côte d'Ivoire. Qui n'a pas détesté Gbagbo? En tout cas, nous, notre génération, tellement ils ont menti sur lui, ils ont raconté du n'importe quoi. Ils mettent la pression par l'information. Vous finissez par détester la personne. Ils font un modèle de la personne pour vous imposer ça dans l'esprit. Vous finissez par détester la personne. On l'amène à la CPI. Après, on lui dit qu'il y a rien, il est coupable de rien. C'est sérieux ça? Kadhafi, on a laissé Kadhafi mourir. Vous Voici les conséquences ici. Dictateur, il a fait ci, il a fait ça par leurs organismes. Ils mentent. RFI, quoi, je ne sais quoi, France 24, Le Monde, Jeune Afrique. Ils sont obligés de faire le travail qu'on les demande. Voilà, ils ne sont pas libres en fait. Il y a beaucoup de médias là, ils ne vivent pas de la publicité ou je ne sais quoi. Hein. C'est faux, c'est des gens qui payent et vous donnez l'information comme ils veulent. Voilà, même malheureusement ici, il y en a, au Burkina, il y en a plein. Voilà, quand on le dit souvent, les gens disent qu'on attaque les journalistes, mais il y en a. Je pense qu'il faut faire le choix entre gagner son pain, mais aussi aimer sa patrie en fait. C'est vrai, eux, ils se battent pour leur patrie. Hein. Tout ce qu'ils font, c'est à l'avantage de leur patrie, mais il faut se départir de ça.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, basically, when you think about, especially like the way Gaddafi was painted, especially here in Western media, as a dictator, but when you actually go line by what Gaddafi did as far as for what he did for his people and elevating what he did for them, was he actually a dictator? Because, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, giving everybody electricity, without, free at the point of service. I mean, I don't know. Making sure that, if you were going to have a new kid, then you actually gave them money to, to have a new kid, building some of the biggest water irrigation tunnels in Africa, so that you can irrigate the whole of Libya. I mean, and then on top of it, not wanting to live in a house and live purely in tents until every single Libyan lives in a home. That doesn't necessarily sound like a dictator to me.
Well, it's interesting to me. A lot of times the Western government, who they describe as a dictator, tends to be someone that's helping the people in their country. Oftentimes, right? It's like, oh no, he's giving people free electricity. We need to shut that down now because we don't want those ideas to get back to our people in the United States. They don't want those ideas to spread, right? So, and it's already too late for that because people have been talking about this for, a couple of years. I would say since Obama's presidency, more people have become vocal about giving everybody, healthcare in this country, free college, because we have free K through 12, that type of thing. More people have become vocal about it. And I think they want to shut that type of thinking down. They don't want it to get out because they know if more people hear about it, then it will spread to other countries and eventually it'll make its way back to the West. And so now people, I hope you understand why a lot of times some of these countries will shut down Western media in their country because they don't want the lies and the propaganda from Western media to enter their country and for their people to repeat those same talking points. So that is why these types of things are very important. This is why it's important that we have independent media, because otherwise, to be honest with you, imagine if we only watched mainstream media right now during Israel and Gaza, Israel's assault on Gaza. Imagine, what would we think? Because most of the time they're siding with Israel. They've had to come in and correct their own lies because independent media has debunked their lies and it just happened to take off and went viral. Yeah. So think about that for a second. Now think about the fact that the majority of Americans anyway that do watch media, a lot of them, particularly older Americans, are only watching mainstream media. So this is why I believe they're trying to issue more censorship. This is why I believe they're trying to shut down certain narratives on social media, because the U.S. government doesn't want the American people to know the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because then it reminds me of what happened when they tried to shut down revolutionaries in Grenada. Shout out to Grenada, though. Hurricane Beryl, Hurricane Beryl's, tearing up the Caribbean right now. But there was a revolutionary in Grenada that said one of the reasons why they don't want a revolution to take place in Grenada is because Grenada is over 90% Black and they speak English. And if socialism took hold in Grenada, and if the Grenadian people spoke to us, Black people who live in the United States, and took the ideas of socialism and deposited it to us, guess what? You know,
That's where Amanda Seals, that's her heritage, actually.
Really?
I believe so. I believe reading this that Amanda Seals' heritage is Grenada. I'll double check, but I believe. But anyway, to that point, she is someone who speaks positively about socialism. She's been very critical about Israel and has supported the BDS movement. So just think about that for a second.
Yeah. To her demise, or her professional demise. Because, I mean, honestly, like, what has been happening, what happened to her is, like, she's being blacklisted because she dares speak out against the imaginary state.
Yeah, here it goes. Amanda Seals was born in Inglewood. Her mother was born and raised in Grenada. Her father is African American from Roxbury in Boston. As a result, both she and her mother have dual citizenship to the U.S. and Grenada.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, well, that's cool. You know, so she probably has very revolutionary roots, you know, which is why, you know, and plus, you know, her mother probably instilled that into her, you know, which wouldn't be a surprise. You know, kind of reminds me of Tupac Shakur, how he had, you know, some revolutionary roots as well, you know, and Tupac Shakur was able to get away with a lot because, you know, but only up to his death. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that as well. And so one of the things I also wanted to direct people's attention to is to continue to keep talking about Congo. One of the reasons why I think we need to continue to keep talking about Congo as well is because, number one, is where, you know, 70% of the world's 70% of the world's cobalt comes from. And genocides are happening all over the United States. I'm sorry, all over the world. Well, by means of the United States, particularly, and other Western countries. But when we talk about Congo right now is really being ravaged because of corporations wanting slave labor in order to extract resources. So yeah, cobalt, coltan, as many, excuse me, as well as many other different resources there. And so I've spoken about it on my channel. Sabby, you spoke about it on your channel regarding what's going on in Congo. And really, it is a genocide that's going on there. There's genocide going on in Sudan as well. Yeah. That do not get talked about enough. Of course, this is a Black network. So therefore, we're going to talk about what's going on in African countries, because even though people like myself and Sabby are both, you know, American descendants of slaves, we also have love throughout the entire diaspora. Meaning, when capitalism, imperialism, colonialism affect, you know, any of our siblings in Africa, we also have to speak out against it. And it's part of the reason why we have to speak out against this, because of imperialism and colonialism is why we're here. You know?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if it weren't for colonialism and imperialism, we would have been born in a free Africa. We would have been born in, you know, I'm like 30% Nigerian. I probably would have been born in Nigeria, in a more free Nigeria. But it's not the way it is.
Yeah, that's true. And we would probably know, like, I mean, we would still have our own language and those customs and culture as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a lot that's going on right now. I was happy to see what what the students at Morehouse did when they put up the Congolese flag during his speech, which I think they should have went further. I still reflect the same thing that you do, is that they honestly should have been way more forceful, and they should have just walked out on him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it felt kind of piecemeal, but I don't want to, you know, bash them too much, but I think that bringing up what's going on in Congo also needs to be as strong as people bringing up what's going on in Gaza and in Palestine. So I'm going to share this. There isn't anything visually disturbing, but what this young lady says about what happened to her in Congo is going to be disturbing. So I'm just going to preface it by saying, you know, this, if you are easily triggered by what she talks about, and it's going to be translated, so she's going to be speaking in her language, so let you guys know. But this is what people in Congo are going through, and I think that's important. We need to humanize the people in Congo. So let me share this. I shared this on Twitter not too long ago, but oh, that's in Spanish. Hang on. Hang on.
I wish there was an automatic translator for. I wish there was an option to just automatically translate videos.
Yeah, me too. But you know, I think it's important that yeah. Let me see. I'll share this really quick. But I do have that video in English translated, but I gotta find it. I thought that was it, but that was another language. What? Anyway, so this says all eyes. Hang on, let me put this down. This says all eyes on Congo. Millions have been killed, displaced, and properties destroyed already, but the world seems to be blind. So let's go here. So this is basically people in Congo, and this is what they're going through. And so as far as what we can see, it's basically homelessness, ravaging homelessness. What's going on there is just horrible. And so this is why we need to continue to keep talking about what's going on there. And I also found the video that I was looking for as well. So let me share that as well. Oh, wrong one. I got two the same tab open. I'm sorry. Let me get this. Got it. All right. So this is going to be in English. So yeah.
Nikasema pale nikule nyama zake, basi mimi naitika nikaitika.
So if you could read what was said there, it's horrible. And what's going on right now is, if you want to take over a land that's not yours, you have to instill fear so that the people can't return. This is what's going on in Gaza. So this is what we call destabilization, meaning that if people flee from the land, then that's all it's game on. You can take it over, do whatever you want, extract the resources. And one of the means to instill fear is, if you are committing mass sexual assault and you're exterminating the people, guess what? They're going to be too afraid to fight back. They're going to be too afraid to defend their land, which is what's going on. And then, you know, you have these huge mines of cobalt and coltan. And let me remind you guys, of course, the Amazon rainforest is called the lungs of the earth. And the Amazon rainforest is the biggest rainforest on earth. But the second biggest rainforest on earth is the Congolese rainforest. So because of the development that's going on there, because of imperialism and neocolonialism, we're at risk of destroying the other side of our lungs for the earth, which is the Congolese rainforest, which is huge amounts of biodiversity. And it could be a huge destruction to, you know, our planet as far as our environment's concerned. So you got to think about it from that aspect too, because the Congolese rainforest is extremely important. Congo, if you ever look at Congo, Congo is lush and green and gorgeous. And yet, of course, they're trying to extract as many resources from them as possible.
Yep. And it's, I mean, I saw the videos. A lot of them we can't play on here, but I saw the videos of the way they're treating the children in the mines in the Congo. And again, also people can have like rechargeable batteries. You know, all this comes at a cost. And another thing I want to mention too, that oftentimes I feel is not said about the Congo when we talk about resources. When people like AOC and Ed Markey and also the Green Party too have explained this as well, when they talk about a Green New Deal and when they talk about green energy, that is going to come from somewhere. Those resources to provide that green energy most likely is going to come from countries like the Congo. So these are things that we do have to be open, and we have to have a serious, honest discussion about this. Who is going to provide the labor to make these things possible? And I do feel like oftentimes that's left out of the discussion. We talk about all of these paths forward to help people, particularly when it comes to climate justice, right? But oftentimes it's not explained where that labor is going to come from.
Absolutely. You know, and so this is just an example of the mines that they're digging in Congo. And, you know, you have people who are literally risking their lives, no infrastructure, no safety. They don't have an OSHA. They don't have a safety apparatus from the government to tell, oh, you can't do things this way. Imagine people being able, you know, falling into that hole, and it may not kill them, but it'll definitely hurt them.
Yep.
You know, and so
they don't have
that's
workers,
at least 20 feet.
They don't have workers' comp.
No, you know, and so when we're talking about what's going on there, it part of it is, you know, who is taking advantage of these people? Wouldn't it be the big tech companies? For instance, it could be Samsung, it could be Apple, it could be a lot of these different companies that make these phones. It could be Hewlett Packard, you know,
any type of technology, any type of tech company,
any type, yeah. And they get their resources of the cobalt and coltan from there. So and that was a great point that you made, especially about you know, when the squad will talk about, oh, we need a Green New Deal, and it's like, okay, but where are you going to get that cobalt and coltan from? Where are you going to get the lithium from?
And this is not to say we don't need to move towards clean energy. We do, but I think these are pieces that are being left out, and it needs to be a part of the discussion. You know, the American people need to know where those resources are going to come from. They're not coming from the United States.
Yeah. But also, and this reminds me of what me and Roger Meadows were talking about, was that there is, you know, there is resources that we could use, but it would circumvent the profit motive for these big companies. Like, for instance, using hemp batteries, because I also talked about this with Joey Peltier, and we talked about hemp batteries and graphite batteries, and these are plentiful, and you can regrow them over and over, but then you wouldn't need to exploit these people, which would also make the necessity for the military industrial complex, that would make it obsolete. It would also make it would make the fossil fuel industry obsolete, big coal obsolete. So you'll make these industries obsolete because it thrives on being able to have enough energy. If we have enough energy, then we don't need these other things that are fossil fuels.
Right. And there's so many other things that you can use hemp for. Like, you can also use hemp to build a house.
Yep.
We talked very about strong. That. Very strong, you guys. Like, and I feel like, again, like, so when we're talking about sustainability, I think we need to take the conversation to another level. So again, like when they talk about Green New Deal and all that type of stuff, don't just focus on, okay, we need clean new energy. Let's talk about other ways that we can have sustainability by using something like hemp. And I feel like it's not even brought up when they have this discussion.
But it's also because a lot of times people will be like, well, we want to do green technology. It's like, it not doesn't matter what you do, but how you go about it. Because a lot of people don't talk about the how. Because if you do it through exploitation, then you really know better. This is why I tackle companies like Tesla. Because while everybody's like, oh, well, we have electric cars. Isn't this great? We're saving the planet. No, you're not. Because you're still exploiting people in the global south for their lithium, their cobalt, and their coltan. And you're still mining things that are deep within the earth that aren't really, they're not really renewable. When in reality, we could be doing it a different way. And so, and then this causes more, military operations. Like, for instance, with
Jill Stein?
No. Great value, Tony Stark. Elon Musk.
What did you call?
He's great value, Tony Stark. When he said, "We'll coup who we want, deal with it," right? When you talk about Bolivia, and the thing is, like, why are we like, if we used graphite and hemp technology for renewable batteries, then we wouldn't even need Bolivia. We wouldn't even need them. It would be obsolete. Which means that would mean that our military forces being all over the world obsolete. Which means it's also the most peaceful option. Because we wouldn't need to be in Iraq or Afghanistan for the oil fields and for the poppy fields. So when people talk about, we need a green revolution, yes, but it also matters just as much as how we go about it too. Because we want a green revolution that does not exploit the people anywhere on Earth in order for those resources. And we can do it. We actually have the answers. They just don't want to do it.
You're 100% right, JB.
And on top of it, like, and this is what gets me, and I'm not going to go after, our people too much, but the Black people who say, oh, well, we just need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and we just got to look out for ourselves here. It's like, yeah, we got to look out for ourselves here, but that it has to be a yes and, in my view. It's like, okay, yes, we need to have our own liberation here. And we also need to look out for our brethren that are also in these African countries. We can do both. We can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Right.
This is why when it comes to, African immigrants from other countries, this is why I say I express solidarity with them. Because yes, you're not from here, and you wouldn't be getting things like reparations from here in the United States. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'm going to keep fighting for reparations for ADOS, but I also want neocolonialism and imperialism to be taken away out of your country that you move from at the same time as well, because ultimately it harms us all. Even it harms us indirectly.
You're right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I talk too much, but
no, I was gonna say this is why I feel like more people do have to have this discussion. I think we all have to sit back and think about this, because exploitation abroad is linked to exploitation in the United States. So you may not think that it's connected, but it is connected. And you just got to trace it back. This is why I continue to say there's no ethical form of capitalism. There's no ethical form of consumption under capitalism, because if you trace back where these products and goods come from, you'll see there's exploitation attached to all of it. I think our best chance of avoiding that was choosing to put the worker first and not put profit first. But CEOs became very greedy and realized that they wanted to put profit first, and they'll just pay the workers less. And that's how you end up with jobs that were shipped overseas. And that's how you end up with the workers being exploited.
Yep. So, and I think okay, let me ask you this. What is one of the best ways to combat this? Because a lot of times people walk away saying, well, man, the whole world is just messed up. So what do we do? Like, what is the best way for us to be able to combat what the United States is doing, not just to us and exploiting us here, but what about the people abroad? What about our siblings in African countries and South American countries and Southeast Asian countries? What is some of the best ways to combat that in your view?
You're going to have a international worker movement. So as much as we have covered unions on this show and other shows, people trying to unionize, that's a great first step. But I always say at the end of the day, the end goal should be worker co-ops. The end goal, it should never stop with unions, because even with unions, you're still not in control. We have seen union managers turn on union members, ignoring what the rank and file have, voted to do. So you don't own a piece of it either when you're a part of a union. Whereas at the worker co-op, you own a piece of the company. So you have more say. So we can't stop at unions. The stepping stone, I think, could be unions, but then the ultimate end goal should be worker co-ops. So that's number one. Number two, you have to create a worker movement that is international. That means having a worker protest movement in the global south, especially since they're heavily exploited, in other countries where workers gather in solidarity. You say, well, how do you do this? The same way everybody protested across the world after October 7th. The same way everyone protested all across the world during the George Floyd protests. You can do the same thing, but you have to do it for a workers' movement. Because again, it's not just unique to the United States. There are people being exploited all over the world for the top 1%.
Yeah. I think part of that answer is also, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but stifling out the power of the 1% inside the empire. I think that is part of it. We need to partner with, now, I know some Black people are going to get mad at me for this, but we need to have solidarity with immigrants in order to be able to do that. Because what good is it if we stop and stop our demands, but then, immigrants are still being used to undercut what our demands are because of them being exploited and being used to be scabs, as it were, for these companies. So ultimately it needs to have a solidarity across the board, but I think you're right. International workers solidarity, and this means also starting, sometimes you got to start small, and it means by doing things like mutual aid, helping out your neighbors, no matter who they are, because we save us. We cannot depend on a politician. A politician can put out the ideas that we want for a more egalitarian system, but ultimately it has to come from us. So, yeah. So, Sabs, are you ready to go to the chat?
Let's go there.
All right. So, let me check. I'm going to check the Rumble side to see, do we have any Rumble rants? Because I think, no, I don't see any rants. Okay. But I did have this one from Rumble that I wanted to bring up. Webangle PB says, hi, Sabby and Jaybe. The IMF and World Bank are loan sharks, but Ruto is also corrupt. By the way, can you say why Nick doesn't post his content on here anymore? I don't really watch YouTube anymore. Go ahead.
The Rumble thing, it's there's a couple of issues. Let's break it down. I personally sometimes have difficulty, I put it on there when I can. But I personally have difficulty sometimes even putting a stream on Rumble. As you guys saw, I told you last week, there were, I don't know what was going on, but it seemed like some technical difficulties on Rumble's end, where a lot of us just had difficulty even getting onto the site. That's one of the things. The other thing is too with Rumble is that I think you need to have, like, so Jaybe and I don't have a producer. It's me and Jaybe. So you really need to have someone on the back end, a producer that can follow the Rumble stream and that can pull up those Rumble rants. So like Eric is the producer with me on my show. So Eric does that for me. Same thing with Rockfin, right? You really do need to have a producer. So there's that. The other thing is speaking of exploiting the workers, Rumble exploits workers. Rumble don't pay us nothing, guys. You guys realize they don't nothing, hardly nothing. I think we've been on Rumble for at least a year, maybe a little bit over a year now.
I think it's probably been 18 months, something like that.
Yeah. The most they gave us was what, $100 for 18 months.
Entire year.
Yeah. They don't give you anything. Like the only way you make something on Rumble is if you get Rumble rants or if you have a Rumble contract, which we don't have. So Rumble, I think they need to do better about actually compensating their workers, which they just not really doing. Like I said, if you don't have a Rumble contract, you ain't making nothing on Rumble. I don't care how many followers you got.
Yeah. And Rumble, if you're watching, your content creators are what make you able to exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird. I never really understood that. And it doesn't matter like how much you post on there or not. Like they just barely, I think the idea for them is for them to use their money for the people that have a contract with them. And that's kind of pretty much it. And all the other creators kind of get screwed. So this idea that those of us that produce on Rumble, Rumble is better about the censorship, but if you think that Rumble is, I guess, being more kind to their workers monetarily, they're not. And we've already told you how YouTube takes a certain percentage of super chats and ad revenue. Rumble's taking a whole lot more. I'm like, because there's no way, like I said, like you can sit there and have like a 4-hour whatever stream on Rumble. And if, like I said, if you don't have that Rumble contract, They're not really trying to give you anything. How do you give people $100 for 18 months? And there's 4 of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, like, there's times where I'll have trouble, like last week for the RBN roundtable. I had trouble getting it started on Rumble purely because it just would not go. Rumble was just glitchy, and I just couldn't put it up. So I let everybody know before we started. I said, sorry, Rumble's just not working, so we're not going to be able to do it on Rumble. That's why the roundtable's not up there. And for also, Rumble used to automatically.
I told her maybe next week might be better. I think she was saying something because we're about to head out soon. Like, someone did want to join about African Haiti. So I told her maybe next week. Do you think might be better? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, guys. Housekeeping moment.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing about Rumble. You know, I don't want to spend too much time on Rumble, but Rumble could definitely do a lot better in compensating their content creators. I definitely will say that.
Oh, Wary said, I think Kim Iverson mentioned the disparity in pay on Rumble a while back. Yeah, it's really, I'm seeing people, look, there are people on Rumble that have like hundreds of thousands of followers. And from what I have heard, some people have not been compensated properly. And I believe the stories based on our experience. Go ahead, Jaybe.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I wanted to put that in. This one is from IHQ. I'll just say IHQ. Says another African country. It's insane how liberals virtue signal about identity politics, but do this to Africans over and over and over and over again. You know what? You own it. Because they'll say, oh my God, we love people of color. And yet you guys will still continue to allow the exploitation of these African countries. But then when we challenge you on it, well, this African leader is corrupt and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, who is the one who's causing coups in these African countries? Who is the one that is pushing these African countries to take loans from the IMF and World Bank? Who's extracting the resources from these countries? Who's putting in puppet leaders so that we can extract resources out of these countries? And then when we complain about how these countries are being treated, then you go, well, their leaders are corrupt. But you guys were the ones that put them there.
Well, why doesn't Joy Reid say anything about this? For people who are not aware, Joy Reid, her family is from the Congo. Why doesn't she speak on this issue? Why doesn't she say anything about how people are being exploited in the Congo, how they're working those kids in the mines or anything like that?
She's Congolese?
Yeah, look it up. You don't hear her saying anything about it because she want to keep her cushy job at MSNBC.
What?
She don't say anything
about it. Of it all.
JB, look, call me. Call me. We'll have a conversation.
Okay. Holy crap. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. We can do a whole show about this, but we can talk over the phone because we can do a whole show about this. It's a lot.
Oh, Zoe, I didn't know. Okay, our guest just had a death in the family. Oh,
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Well.
Sorry. Okay.
That explains everything. Condolences to you. If you ever get to see this, I'm very sorry. Oh,
sorry about that.
Sucks. Okay. That's why. All right. Let me see. Let me go here. DC said Gaddafi's neighbors didn't like him much. Could it also have been that Gaddafi's neighbors were also puppets of the West?
One of the things Gaddafi wanted to do is that he wanted to get African countries away from their dependence on the West.
Yeah. Let me see. As Madu Jibeya says, peace to the revolutionaries on the Blackout channel from the belly of the imperialism beast, the UK. Nice to have you. All right. Got people from the UK. Roger Meadows says, thank you very much for this, says, saw the doc that said O2 produced by Amazon rainforest doesn't leave because there's so much life there that animals reabsorb all the O2. So the O2 is trapped there. Interesting. I did not know that. Let me see. Golden Monarch says, this is barbaric. Who's manufacturing Africans to turn against other Africans? The answer is to rebel against white conquerors, still very present in the big tech societies.
There you go.
Interesting. Savita says, Hillary's doing entirely. She had something against Libya. Imagine she had become the president. How many countries would she have invaded? That's a good one. Yeah. Northern Ontario parties. That's a funny name. Says peace from the Fantasy Canada. Happy Yankee Doodle 4th. Hope you both find some reasons for joy today. Thank you very much. And yes, Alex, I do want to read Gaddafi's Green Book. I heard it's really good. I need to get it, so I'll try to get into that. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, Zaldivar says, and introduced United African currency similar to the euro. That's what Gaddafi wanted to do. You want to talk about BRICS tearing up the West? What Gaddafi was trying to do was similar to BRICS in a way, wanting to basically make a USA, but it's the United States of Africa. Imagine that.
And Obama said he was not going to have that.
Yep. Boy, oh boy, I'm telling you. Let me go to the Rockfin because I know we have some Rockfin tips. And then we'll go to shouting out the patrons. Let me go. Oh, wait. Jaybe. Get it together, Jaybe. That's what I say in my head to myself. But I do it in your voice, by the way, Sabs. All right, so let's go here. Dave. I forgot I was doing Rick James earlier.
Rick James.
Dave Burt, thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin. Oh my gosh. You guys are funny. Dave Burt's been all up in the chat. Thank you so much, Dave Burt. Oh my gosh. And I see what you say about the troops. Yep. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. So let's give a shout out to the patrons. For without you guys, we would not be able to do this work. We are so grateful and thank you to everyone who has, essentially kept the lights on here. People like myself, Sabby, Nick, and Rome. We actually do also have chapters on the ground, but we try to encourage people to get on the ground to help other people and to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And because of you guys being patrons, you guys actually allow us to be able to do that and just make this channel possible. So without you guys, there would be no RBN. So really, you guys help us keep on the mission to not only spread the word, but also to make sure that, we do the most on the ground as much as we can. So I just want to say a big shout out and thank you to all of you who have kept us afloat. So thank you so very much. So Sabs, what you got going on this evening?
Well, I have 4 news stories. We're going to get into that debate between Piers Morgan and Roger Waters. We're going to talk about the recent rumblings about Biden deciding that, trying to decide whether or not if he's going to stay in the race, and the media already starting to push Kamala Harris So you guys should just get prepared for that. A little bit of foreign policy with Ukraine and another ruling from the Supreme Court that I think is really important. People need to hear about.
Sabs, do you think that they are going to replace him with Kamala? Because look, I don't even think the donor class likes Kamala.
I feel like they'd rather lose than to replace them, but I really do. I feel like they'd rather lose than to replace him, but at the same time, I can't see them putting someone before her because she is next in line. So all the talks about Gavin Newsom and all that kind of stuff, obviously liberals are going to have a freak out fest if they were to put a white man in front of, a woman that's, woman of color. So who is next in line? So obviously there will be freak out over that. But I don't know, dude. Either way, they're screwed.
I don't know, man. I'm just saying, like, Kamala, I feel like Kamala, she'll do the bidding of them, but at the same time, it's like they know that nobody likes her, so therefore, because of they try to get the illusion that the people are in power, if they know that she's very unlikable, they're not going to push her. They need to keep that illusion that, oh, well, we're going to put somebody who people are either want or okay with. Like, people are sticking with Biden because they want to, not have Trump, but at the same time, I don't know. It just feels like they need to keep the facade up. That's what it feels like.
There you go.
And, yeah. That's what it feels like. But I gotta show this. I know, Sabs. I apologize to your eyes and ears, but we gotta talk about this. Oh gosh, I think I showed this to you before, but we gotta revisit.
Oh, damn. I'm Kamala. Okay. Happy 50th birthday to hip hop. When people think of me, okay, they think hip hop. I grew up in Oakland. I'm wearing this shirt. I scream hip hop. Hip hop. I'm into hip hop. I want to give it up. Okay, so all the greats. So Missy, TLC, ODB, DMX, okay, ABC, and LGBT, okay, Q, Lil Nas X. Giving it up. We here at the residence. It's lit. That's a word I have said before. All right. A man once said to the window, to the wall, okay, to the sweat, drop down my balls. Skeet, skeet, motherfucker. Skeet, skeet, goddamn. Those words are poetry, okay? I mean, it rhymes. So technically, that's poems. Happy birthday, hip-hop. Kamala out.
Jaybe, will you send that to me? I think that'll be my opening tonight. I was going to use a different one of Joe Biden. Would you send that to me, the link?
I will send it to you because, yes. And this is cringe as hell.
And as always, Wakanda forever. Paid for by Kamala Harris.
Just
damn.
Y'all realize why we don't like her. We don't like that woman. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with y'all because I saw it Now you have to see it. So,
all righty.
All right. So look, on my channel, I'll be doing the readings later this week. I'll be continuing the reading of Margaret Kimberly's book, Prejudicial. So we'll be doing that. As well as, if you guys have not, I have already just interviewed the author of Laziness Does Not Exist on Tuesday, Dr. Devon Price. So there's a clip already out for that. But I interviewed the author. It was an amazing conversation. So if you guys would like to, you guys go ahead and check that out on my channel. And then I'll probably be talking about news stories this Saturday at 6 p.m. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing then. Man, I'm telling you, there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of news going on. Sabby, I'm going to be watching your channel in about an hour to listen to what you say about Kamala. And
oh man, get ready to laugh. We gotta laugh at some things on it.
Really quick before we go, did you have a corny ass boss that was like Kamala?
In a way, I have before in the past. In a way, just teases a little too hard and just tries just a little bit too much. Yeah.
I kind of figured you did. I kind of figured that you had a cringe boss in the past. So, because you worked in the office, atmosphere. So, oh boy.
What kills me were the people who would come in first thing in the morning, like literally first thing in the morning, like you literally just sat your butt in the chair and would always just come in and be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, "How was your weekend? Did you do anything great?" And I'm like, "Dude, I just sat down." Like, what are you on? Like, I always wondered that. Like, what are you on? Jesus.
Yeah, it reminds me of that lady, Corporate Aaron. Yeah, I just, if you guys do not know who Corporate Aaron is, you guys need to look her up. She's horrible. Well, the person who's doing Corporate Aaron is not horrible, but it's like a visceral reaction. So I'm gonna close out with this video. Sabs, have a good one, everybody. Wait, let me check to see do we have any new super chats? No. Oh, okay. Hang on. Roger says Jaybe Pete DM. Okay. Roger, he got me on before we left. Hang on.
All right, I gotta head out, but
okay.
Bye.
Bye,
guys.
Bye. Let me see here. Hang on. This is. Let me see here. It says that's right. More than half of the oxygen you breathe comes from the marine photosynthesized, just like phytoplankton and seaweed. Both use carbon dioxide, water, and energy from the sun to make food for themselves, releasing oxygen in the process. In other words, they photosynthesize and they do it in the ocean. Yeah, I learned about this way back in high school. And yeah, so I also know about this, about the photosynthesis from phytoplankton in the ocean. So yeah, I've always been aware of that, that a lot of our oxygen also comes from the ocean, which is also one of the reasons why we need to preserve our oceans as well too. So yeah, thank you very much. So let me share this with you guys. So I'm going to head on out. Look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Something will make you laugh on the way out. And remember, joy is revolutionary. And don't stop talking about Congo. And don't stop talking about Sudan. And keep talking about Palestine. Free them all. Free them all. All right.
Okay, so it's actually a little bit before 9, but everybody's already here, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Corporate Erin. I'm the manager for the Managerial Logistics for Management McManagement. And for the purposes of today's meeting, why I put a 9 o'clock meeting on everyone's call this morning, thank you so much for being here, is kind of really just explaining my presence. So I am taking over social media for Lisa Beasley. She's on a sabbatical. She currently doesn't have the bandwidth, and we can definitely understand that even though we have our workload here, we can definitely understand when, you know, someone doesn't have the bandwidth, some of us have to pick up the slack. But in order to make sure that this doesn't turn into a complete dumpster fire, I'm here making sure that all of the deliverables that Lisa wants to get across to you gets across to you. So as I sift through all of these assets here in our manager's database, and really trying to understand the cadence of the rollout here, a lot of things that I'm noticing is there's a lot of contention, a lot of tension centering my presence. So I can understand definitely what it's like to have an influx of new employees come in. And you're like, whoa, where did you all come from? Who onboarded you? So I just kind of wanted to explain, you know, why I'm here to take over social media for Lisa, get these deliverables to you. And additionally, I'm noticing the word triggering coming up a lot. So I just kind of want to make sure that this is an environment where we are noticing everybody's strengths. So even I have, you know, something unique to bring to the table. And, you know, I just kind of want to be valued for my experiences and my expertise that I have. You know, oftentimes when we think of diverse perspectives, we often leave out some voices that are in the room, some critical key voices. So this definitely isn't to throw anybody under the bus, but I also definitely wanted to just make sure that we touch on these critical touch points here so we can understand that my value that I bring to the table is needed. So I will be hopping on later tonight to take some questions from you to show you just more of what skill sets are in my wheelhouse so you can better understand me even more. So I look forward to it. So I'm going to let you go now. We actually have a minute left. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go and give you your